Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom. Okay, this is going to be an interesting sermon moment. I want to talk about the myths and the facts of the Rebbe being alive. Now, why do I want to talk about it this week? Because this week ends the book of Genesis, begins the exile of the Jews in Egypt, and the name of the Torah portion is VaYechi Yaakov, and Yaakov lived. Talmud says that if you look in the portion, it doesn't say anywhere that Jacob died, and from here the Talmud rules that Jacob never died. And the Talmud asks, what do you mean? The verses right after said they embalmed him and they buried him. And the Talmud answers, his offspring is alive, so too he is alive, which leads to a lot of issues. Like, if that be the case, it's not just Jacob, Abraham, Isaac. I mean, every person has, their offspring, be it spiritual offspring, students enjoying their teachings, or physical offspring. Why would we say just about Jacob? And so too with Moses, the Talmud in Tractate Sota says, just as he served here below, so too he continues to serve there above. So I want to let's just get the myths out of the way. Whenever you're going to hear someone say that the burial site of the Rebbe, the coffin is empty, or other things, just ridiculous things, the Rebbe is in 770, whatever it may be. So just that we have clarity here. That is a myth. It's actually in best scenario, feeble minds, misunderstanding teachings, and in worst scenarios, politically driven in the inroads politics of Chabad and whatever. Okay, done, over with that. Let's talk about the reality. So what the reality is that living is defined in Torah as having an impact on the physical world, being close and having an impact on the physical world, which leads me to something that I, together with thousands of people, witnessed on one Shabbat. The Rebbe was talking about that his father-in-law said that the holy Rabbi Levi Yitzchak Barditcheva said that when he dies, he will not go into heaven. He will remain outside by the gate to be accessible by those who physically need him and to have an impact on the physical world until Mashiach comes. Then the previous Rebbe said that when he was sitting outside, when Rabbi Yitzchak Barditcheva was sitting outside of the door of the paradise, refusing to go in, what they did was they opened up the door and he heard the spirituality of what it is when the souls answer Yehei Shmei Rabba Amen, and he couldn't contain himself, he jumped in. Then the Rebbe went on to say, again, I was there, I heard this. The Rebbe went on to say that definitely my father-in-law who told the story knew that he has to find a way to protect himself from that slipping into the Garden of Eden. And then the Rebbe went on to say that the idea that he has how to make sure this doesn't happen is that when you take an oath, if I say I take upon myself this oath according to what the intentions of that man is thinking, then to nullify the oath, you can't speak to me who made the oath, you need to speak to the person who I said that is according to his intentions. Then the law says that someone who makes a neder al dasa rabbim, someone who takes upon himself an oath but by the intentions of the entire Jewish people, what they have in mind, you can never nullify that oath because you'd have to speak to every single Jew. And the Rebbe said, and that would be the best way to make sure that this doesn't happen, that you take upon yourself an oath on the intentions of the masses, not your own intentions, that you will not enter into the Garden of Eden until Mashiach comes to be able to be available, and thus you'll be able to be sure that they won't be able to trick you into the Garden of Eden. And the Rebbe finished that talk. I can tell you, none of us heard what the Rebbe said after that. So that's clear. No one heard. But what we all saw was that the Rebbe's lips were moving and he was saying something. It is our assumption, nothing more than an assumption, that right then and there he took upon himself that oath. Another thing I want to tell you, if you look into the teachings of the Rebbe concerning going to the burial place of his father-in-law, More than once he writes these words. I'll tell it to you exactly the words he writes, and then I'll translate. Und der Iker is wissen, as do gefindt sich. The main thing is to know that this is where he is. Literally, this is where he is. His soul remains here to be accessible to all those who physically need him for blessings and guidance. And by that, I want to tell you one other story that I heard from the Rebbe's secretary, Rabbi Benjamin Klein, of blessed memory. Rabbi Benjamin Klein said that there was a person, and we know the name, who asked the Rebbe that he's here just for the holidays, and if he doesn't go to the burial site of the previous Rebbe in the days of Chalamod Sukkot, the intermediate days, then he won't be able to go. So he wanted to know, being that you're not allowed to go to a cemetery on Shabbat and on holidays, are you allowed to go on those days? Now, parenthetically speaking, the answer is no. However, look at what the Rebbe answered. The Rebbe said to him, that will all depend on how you view the burial place of my father-in-law. If you view it as a burial place in the cemetery, then no, you cannot go. But if you realize that all that happened was he moved his office over a couple of blocks, meaning from his office in 770 Eastern Parkway to his office in now the Ohel, then you're allowed to go. So the reality that I want to share with you is that when you hear Hasidim saying, VaYechi Yaakov, and the Rebbe is alive, understand what we mean by that. What we mean by that is that when we go to the burial site of the Rebbe, we are not going to pray at the grave sites of righteous people. That's not why Hasidim go to the Ohel. We go to the Ohel because nothing more than the Rebbe moved over his office from 770 Eastern Parkway to Springfield Boulevard Cemetery. And that's why if the Rebbe tells us, you ask your questions and trust that the Rebbe will find a way to answer. So I want to just share with you, the Rebbe clearly said that the reason why all the Rebbes did not allow themselves to be brought to Israel and buried in Israel is because of the same reason that Moses was buried in the desert. The Rebbe remains with us so that we have accessibility to him in our dark and difficult times, and in guidance and in strength. So, my dear friends, I want to conclude. If you haven't been at the Ohel yet, do go to the Ohel. Go into the Rebbe as a child to a father, as a chassid, to a Rebbe, and ask for the lifeline of what Jacob gives us to survive the desert, to survive the exile, to survive the bondage, and to be able to have blessings physically and spiritually. I do want to suggest, don't go before you speak to a chassid and ask him, what does the Rebbe say about this? What's my mindset when I knock on that door before I walk in? What is real and what is not? Shabbat Shalom, my dear friends.